We're going to kick things off with a movement moment, and this is going to be led by Carrie Merrill, Calissa Schneider, and Sarah Smith from Western Racquetball and Fitness in Green Bay. Rocksteady Boxing gives people living with Parkinson's disease hope by improving their quality of life through non-contact, boxing-based fitness curriculum. Rocksteady Boxing Western Racquet has been fighting back for close to 7 years, holding all levels, 75-minute classes 6 times a week. In class, they work on anything that PD might have affected, such as voice, balance, cognition, strength, mobility, dexterity, and more. There's an element of heavy bag workout and speed bag and a huge sense of community. They bring the fun factor into every class and make sure everyone leaves feeling successful. The class runs with 4 certified coaches and 2 to 4 volunteers to help assist individual boxers or help with different stations of exercise. Our demonstration today will be led by Carrie, Calissa, and Sarah, and they will be demonstrating a shortened Rocksteady Boxing class from voice activation to some punching drills, so get ready to be active.
Thank you. All right. Can I hit start? All right. Hi, everyone. Like she said, I'm Carrie. This is Sarah. This is Calissa. We run Rocksteady Boxing in Green Bay, 75-minute classes. We combat anything that Parkinson's can affect, from voice activation to dexterity. We hit the heavy bag, speed bag. We get people on the floor, off the floor, strength training, flexibility, mobility. So we thought, wouldn't it be fun to put you through a shortened version of this class right after lunch? Yes. I think so. Yes. We do tie in a lot of brain fitness as well, so we're actually going to start there after we just set some good intentions. So whether you want to stand or sit, we're going to take some nice deep breaths. Big inhale and exhale. Good. Inhale and exhale. Good. Inhale and exhale. If you want to add your arms, coming all the way up for a big inhale and exhale. One more time, inhale and exhale. Standing up nice and tall, let's look over our right shoulder. Head back to center, look over your left. Head back to center. Drop your chin to your chest, still standing up nice and tall. Take a look at your feet. Give your toes a little wiggle inside your shoes. Maybe you shift your feet forward and back and side to side. And then look all the way up towards the ceiling, stretching out the front of your neck, opening up your airway. Head back to center, right ear to right shoulder. If you want to take your left hand and reach towards the ground, you'll feel a nice stretch down the side of your neck. Beautiful. Head back to center and left ear to left shoulder. Good. Head back to center. Hold your own hand. Just move your wrists around, little figure eights. A couple times through. We're going to wake up the brain, and then we're going to start moving. Deal?
Deal.
Perfect. Deal?
Deal.
Awesome. All right. Show me your right hand. All right. Very good. And then take your right hand, touch your left earlobe. Take your left hand and touch your nose. Perfect, you all pass, now switch. 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 So this is what I do in my office all day to practice. Switch, yep.
She does.
Switch, I do.
She does.
Switch. Oh, nice job, and switch. Good. Shake, shake, shake. Show me your right hand, peace fingers, and your left hand. Switch there. Switch. And switch. Switch. How are my coaches doing behind me? Good. Switch. Stare at them. Pressure. Switch. Should we go a little faster?
No.
What? Yeah, let's do it. Switch. 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 Perfect. Hold your own hand again, couple figure eights. Moving on from waking up your brain, we are now going to use your voice with Coach Sarah.
Hello. Hi. All right.
So you guys can be very loud. I just witnessed. Are you going to continue to be loud? Yes, great. All right, so always with each class we do some sort of voice activation, so I thought I'd show you one of our examples. We are going to talk about the vowels with a V.
Not vowels.
Not vowels. Vowels, all right? Do you know your vowels? What are they?
E-I-O-U.
Sometimes Y. Yes, we include that. All right, we're going to start with A. I want you to say it 3 times as loud as you can. Go. A. Nice deep breath and hold the letter A for 3 seconds. Here we go. A. Good. Now we're going to give A an emotion. All right? So I want you to look at someone across the room, across the table, and pretend that A is high. So A. There. Good. All right. After A comes E. 3 times, nice and loud. E. Hold it for 3 seconds. E. And E is excited. E. Get more excited. Come on. Yes, love it. All right. A, E, I. 3 times, nice and loud. I. Hold for 3 seconds. All right, I is confused. I. A, E, I. You're doing good. Oh, 3 times, nice and loud. Oh. Good, and hold for 3 seconds. Oh. Good. O, you're in love. So sweet. A, E, I, O, U. 3 times, nice and loud. U. Hold for 3 seconds. U. All right, you were just in love, they dumped you, now you're angry. You. Put your whole body into it. You. There we go, nice. A, E, I, O, U.
Sometimes Y.
Sometimes Y. 3 times, nice and loud.
Y.
Hold for 3.
Y.
And you're happy. Why? So happy. Do it again. Why? All right. So that's just one example of our voice activation. I'm going to move on to a short warm-up. So get those bodies moving, and then we'll do some punching. How does that sound?
Good.
All right. And some music would be great, right? All right.
Yes.
So you can stay standing, and I just want you to start finding a rotation. So moving those hips, lifting that heel, rotation. Good. Once you find that rhythm, go ahead, extend an arm like you're reaching corner to corner. Nice. Good. Reach down towards the floor. And let's reach up, nice and high. Good. 4 more. 4, 3, 2, 1. Settle those feet. Give me your goalpost arms. We're going to reach up and down. Up, down. Up, down. You can use your voices. Up, down. Up, down. Up, down. Up. How loud can you get? Up, down. Up, down. Up, down. 4 more. 4. Down. 3. Down. 2. And 1. Good. Arms out to a T. We're going to start with some arm circles. Start small, going forward. Try not to smack your neighbor. Watch your space. Good. A little bigger. And biggest.
I got a table.
Nice. Good. Arms out to the T. Backwards. Start small. Little bigger. And biggest. Good. Good, couple hamstring scoops. So take one foot, heel down, toes up. Hinge you from those hips. It's like you're splashing water at the person across from you or next to you. Feel it in the back of that hamstring, back of that leg. Good, count down with me from 4. 4, 3, 2, last one. Good. Squats, feet under shoulders. It's like you're reaching for an imaginary stool behind you. Standing up nice and tall. You go down, up, down, up, down, up. Use those voices. Up, down, up, down. I can't hear you. Down, up, down, up, 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 down, up, up. 4 more. 4, up, 3, up, 2, up, 1. Good. Arms out in front. High knees. Using that core to lift those knees up. Bringing those knees towards your hands. Nice, you got it. We're gonna progress it just a little bit. Arms up. Opposite hand, opposite knee. Crossing that center line of the body. Good, let's count down for 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you ready to kick butt? Yep. Your own butt. Kick your own butt, butt kicks. It's like you're scraping gum off your shoe, right? Hands can go to your hips. Here we go, last 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. And our boxer's favorite warm-up move, fast feet. How fast can you get those feet? Option is a fast march. This really gets the heart rate moving. Count down from 10 with me. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe. Do we feel warm? All right, moving on to Carrie. Calissa. Sorry. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Hi.
All right. So we're going to slow it down just a little bit. We're going to work on balance. Okay, everyone's favorite. So if you're not standing, please try to stand. Get close to your chair. You're going to take your left foot and put it in front of your right. You want to pretend like you're up on that balance beam or a railroad track. Watch that back heel. Make sure it's not twisted out. Shoulders are on top of those hips. Give me a big shoulder roll. Good. Smile on your face. Ah, beautiful. All right. Perfect. So once you find that balance, make sure your weight's even in both feet. Can you be mindful of your neighbors? Bring your arms out to a T. Find that focal point. Not me. Good. Your left foot is in front. Can you bring your left arm up by your ear? Woo! Stay strong. Relax those shoulders. Chin's level with the floor. Can you flip your L? Nice. Great job. All right, if you want to, can you look at your left hand? Good, count down from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shake it out. Great job, you guys. All right, best part about balance is we got to do the other side. So take your right foot this time, put it in front of your left. Heel and toe are kissing. Make sure your weight's even in both feet. Shoulders on top of your hips, belly buttons in. Smile on your face. When you're ready, reach out for that T. Relax those shoulders. Are you still smiling?
Yep.
Yeah, there it is. Good, all right, bring that right arm now up to your ear. When you're ready, switch sides. Are you singing the song in your head? Yes. I am. Good, all right, let's look at that right hand. Good, let's count up to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come on out of it. Great job, you guys. All right, who's ready to start punching? All right, let's try it again. Who's ready to start punching? Yeah, there it is.
All right, again, show me your hands. 4 fingers curled, thumbs over the top, elbows on a shelf. Nice, soft, athletic stance. Core is tight, so if I were to come sucker punch you in the gut, you'd be like, so what? From here, what I want you to do is extend just your right arm, push out, fully extend. Show me your peace fingers. That is where your target is. So looking right through those peace fingers is exactly where you're gonna be punching with every punch. Bring it back, protect your face. Left arm comes out, extend out. Good, come on back. Let's go right, left, a little quicker. Right, left, right, left,
Right, left.
We're breathing as we're extending. This is your basic punch with both feet facing forward here. Hit, hit. Good, now just cross across that body. So notice where our hips are turning. It's like you're squishing a bug and working through your hips. The power comes from the lower body. Boxing does a lot of lower body work. Your fist just kind of delivers a message, yes? Back to your jabs, right, left, left. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, right the center of chest, give me a speed bag, wrist over wrist. Wrist over wrist. Now, as we're doing our speed bag, we're gonna learn 2 more punches coming up, but as we're doing this, we all wanna know what your favorite candy bar is. Go, all at the same time.
Hershey's. Crunch.
Only 3 people like candy bars? What's your favorite candy bar?
Twix.
All right, hooks. Set it up. Your hook, you lift your elbow up, you come all the way around, squish that bug, stops right here like you're aiming for somebody's jawline. It comes right back and reset. It's almost like you have a spring on that elbow. So hook, hook. Big turn in the hip, always picking up that heel, yes? So drive the ball of your foot into the ground to generate that power. Hook, 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 hook. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reset. Uppercut. Your uppercut, your elbows stay bent, knuckle goes right to the sky, aiming for somebody's chin. We're still bringing that lower body with you. So uppercut and left, right, left. You know what feels really good when you do uppercuts? Don't you feel that more? Come on.
Yes.
It just feels good to punch things, right? They say, why is boxing good for people with Parkinson's? Come on now. Eye-hand coordination, agility, strength, and it just feels really good. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jabs. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Cross jabs for 10, 9,
8, 7,
6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Hooks. Ready, go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Uppercuts. How's that lunge feel? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Up to tempo uppercuts. Go. Hit, 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 hit. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Deep breath. Exhale. Deep breath. And exhale. 2 more. Deep breath. And exhale. 1 more. Deep breath. And exhale. We are Rock Steady Boxing from Green Bay. Please check the website if you want to find a Rock Steady Boxing near you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
How do you feel now? Are you warmed up? Nice and awake? So it is great pleasure for me to introduce our next speaker, Julie Feil. Julie and I were colleagues at Neuroscience Group. So I retired from my clinical practice in June and Julie and I work together at Neuroscience Group, and she's an integral, valuable resource as we partnered in our memory clinic at Neuroscience Group. Julie received her master's degree in social work at UW-Madison and has worked in the medical field for 38 years with individuals living with various neurological diseases, including Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's disease, and traumatic brain injury. She presently works at Neuroscience Group in Neenah as a social worker and a counselor, assisting families and individuals with coping with their diagnosis, as well as connecting them to resources to help them on their journey. Today, Julie will be discussing brain gains, how to flex the muscle between your ears. Please give a warm welcome to Julie Feil.
Okay, can you hear me? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Boy, I don't know about you, but that was a great morning. Sessions were wonderful, and just all that exercising. I don't know, I'm already worn out. So, thanks for coming today. I'm going to talk today about brain gains and how to flex that muscle between your ears. We're going to talk about different activities that you can do at home that might be helpful for you. Oftentimes when I'm in the clinic, I hear people say, well, all my friends feel the same way. They're having the same symptoms, and it must just be old-timers disease. Or they'll say, isn't this normal for someone my age? As you know, some of the neurodegenerative diseases, it's not really normal for aging, but it is very common as part of aging in some people. So just in Wisconsin alone, the prevalence of Parkinson's disease is about 15,000 people. So we have quite a few people right in Wisconsin. And it's estimated that 1.2 million people in the United States will be living with Parkinson's disease by 2030. So that's pretty remarkable. That's only 5 years away. The incidence increases with age. Men are more likely than women to be diagnosed. And Parkinson's is a progressive neurological disorder that, as you know, affects movement, which is why we're doing all those great exercises and staying active. And the average age of onset is about 60, but we do have a lot of people who have younger onset Parkinson's as well. It doesn't necessarily shorten our lives, but it does impact our movement abilities and sometimes our thinking abilities. So having a parent or sibling also increases the risk somewhat. The prevalence of dementia with Parkinson's disease is something we don't like to talk about, but it does occur fairly often. It's 30%, but the incidence rate increases 4 to 6 times compared to controls, and it might be lower during the first 3 to 5 years after the onset of Parkinson's, but as the disease progresses over time, most people do develop dementia, about 75%. So we're going to talk a little bit about dementia. A lot of people ask me the question, what is dementia? What does dementia mean? And really all dementia means is that a person has a loss of cognitive functioning and thinking, remembering, and reasoning to the extent that it's starting to affect their daily living. So that's what dementia is. And I like to use the analogy, it's sort of like ice cream. We all know what ice cream is, right? It's smooth, it's creamy, it's cold. A lot of people know what dementia is or have some kind of understanding of what it is, but we don't know what kind. So dementia is really an umbrella term, like ice cream is, right? And there are different flavors of dementia. Alzheimer's disease is one type of dementia. Parkinson's disease can represent another type of dementia, along with Lewy body and vascular. There's frontotemporal lobe dementia. So there's all different things that we know can cause dementia. So what can we do about that, right? Some things we can't change. We can't change the fact we're all aging. We can't change our genetic makeup. But there are several things we can change, and you've been learning about some of these things today. So one of the things is really not to isolate yourself. We learned during COVID, people had a really hard time. We saw a lot of people really change with their cognition. They had a much more rapid progression of their disease. Exercising your body, exercising your brain, controlling what we're going to call your modifiable risk factors, and I'll explain that a little bit. And then eating a healthy diet and getting your Z's, catching those Z's. Sleep is really important. And they've been doing a lot more research with sleep and how it relates to dementia, either as part of Parkinson's or as part of other neurodegenerative diseases. So, social stimulation, going back to that, it's huge. A lack of social stimulation is really not healthy for you. It's important to get out there and have novel experiences, talk to friends, talk to families, using your language abilities, seeing new things in your community and doing new things is really good. Engaging in social activities and hobbies, those are all good for us. People who isolate themselves and stay home and just watch TV really don't do as well as those who are getting out there and doing something. Some of the things you can try to exercise your body, which is the other big pillar of health, is, first obviously check with your doctor to see what they feel comfortable with you doing at your present level. Silver sneakers at the YMCA can be a good choice. Just going for walks. Trying to get that heart rate up like we just did. And just gradually building your endurance over time. So we just tried the Rocksteady boxing, and so that's one that's great for Parkinson's. Another is the Power program, PWR, and those are excellent options. And as I was walking around today, I saw so many other things as well that I didn't know about, different programs that people are doing. The woman who went first this morning and got our blood pumping, that's another great program. So many different things you can try. Tai Chi, there was a 2012 study that showed that Tai Chi had some benefit. It just showed measurable improvement in balance and stability. And also they feel that yoga can also be really helpful for some of that flexibility. And that also speaks to our meditation and spiritual and brain wellness that the other speaker was talking about this morning. So big and loud, right? For Parkinson's disease, Big and Loud is another program that we look at. It's the Lee Silverman voice treatment. And the big is the one that moves your body with the repetitions and core movements and strengthening and stretching. Those are all good things. And then the speech treatment aspect, or the Loud program, it helps our vocal loudness by the muscles in the voice box, or the larynx. So projecting our voices and practicing that can be a good thing to do. And those are available, this Big and Loud program is available in a lot of communities in Wisconsin and around the country, just as the Rocksteady Boxing and Power are also most likely offered in a location near you. You can find a lot of classes. If you do go on the Wisconsin Parkinson website, I believe they do have a place where you can look at what's near you in terms of some of these programs. The next pillar of health is controlling your risk factors. And we call these modifiable risk factors, right? We can all kind of watch our blood pressure, do things to improve our cholesterol, our diabetes, our sleep, and have regular physicals. So taking care of yourself and your physical well-being has a huge impact on your brain health as well. In fact, one of the sayings that we recently heard about is what's good for your heart is good for your brain. And that is very true. A lot of the things that we do to keep our heart healthy, if you think about it, it helps your circulation of blood to your brain and oxygen to your brain. And another thing we've all heard about for years is how the Mediterranean countries have a very low incidence of Parkinson's disease and dementias and different neurodegenerative diseases. And so we've always kind of looked at the Mediterranean diet as one of the possibilities of helping those people in those countries have better brain health. Well, then we came along, and as I mentioned, we've been doing more research with heart health. And we looked at the heart diet, which is the DASH diet. And so what they did is they really married the two diets, and they call it the MIND diet, or the Mediterranean DASH intervention for neurodegenerative delay. Try saying that. That's a tough thing to say. So both of those diets really emphasize a lot of healthy living, healthy foods, leafy green vegetables, berries, nuts. I used to work with a doctor who said any nut that looks like a brain is good for your brain. So think about that, walnuts being the best one, right? So some of those diet changes can go a long ways into helping with our neurodegenerative health as well. So it's also having good sleep hygiene. That can be a big factor. So when I say sleep hygiene, I refer to not only how long you're sleeping, but the quality of your sleep. We want to make sure when you sleep, you're storing those memories, you're getting that oxygen flow to the brain. So people who have sleep apnea really need to have that checked out and use a CPAP machine. Not as scary as you think. It's really important to use because, again, it gets that oxygen to your brain during the night. So if you have a partner that's snoring or gasping while they're sleeping, it would be important to talk to your primary doctor about that, and they probably will send you to have a simple sleep study. And nowadays they can do those right at home for most people. You don't always have to go to the hospital and stay overnight. So that's a good thing to do. Also for Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia, which is kind of a little bit of a cousin to Parkinson's, REM sleep disorder can be something that they experience. There's a lot of movement in your sleep, and we want to make sure that your doctor is aware of that if you are experiencing that. REM sleep disorder, they've also found, can be something that could be predictive of a neurocognitive disease. So we know that 76% of people after 10 years and 91% of people after 14 years of having REM sleep disorder issues may have a type of neurological disease. So if you're starting to have those symptoms and you're kicking your partner at night, or they feel like they have to move to another place so they don't get hurt, or you're acting out your dreams, that's something to talk to your doctor about as well. The next thing is exercising that muscle between your ears. So we're going to talk about that in a little more depth because it's extremely important. You don't have to be a game person. So I have some patients that come in and they say, no, I don't play games. I don't like games. That's okay. There are other things you can be doing that can help build your cognitive skills. And if nothing else, it helps you compensate. So even if you're starting to have some of that brain fog as part of your Parkinson's or have an early mild cognitive impairment, getting involved in doing more games might help you compensate or build that neuroplasticity that our earlier speaker talked about this morning. Just helping those connections in the brain function better and communicate better together. So there are several cognitive domains as we age, and I'm going to briefly go over them. One is visual spatial skills. So we know that visual spatial skills is something that people with Parkinson's and Lewy body often do struggle with. And what visual spatial skills refers to is that feeling of knowing where you are in place and having a sense of where your body is. So it could affect our driving. For example, if we're driving and we think, oh, we can make this left-hand turn, we have plenty of room before that oncoming car will be here, but actually it's closer than we think, right? We're having trouble distinguishing that distance. Another example might be if you're going downstairs and the stairs are the same color as the landing and you miss the bottom step because to you it looks like it kind of blends together. You have trouble distinguishing where one stops and the other starts. So those kinds of problems come along with the visual spatial skills. Then there's problem solving, just making a decision and taking everything into account that is required when you make a decision, right? You kind of hear everything and in your mind you're organized, you have your thoughts all organized and you make a decision. That can really be challenging for some people when they're starting to have brain changes. Executive functioning is that more complex decision making, like reasoning or attention or planning an event. Some people will come to me and say, my loved one used to always plan the holiday with our family and now they can't seem to understand when to make this food and when that one should go in the oven and who's coming when. And so those kinds of things would indicate more trouble maybe with planning. There's the working memory, there's attention, paying attention to things, and language. So all of those things can be affected, and they're domains of our brain, or what our brain can do. And we take a lot of these for granted, don't we? A lot of them. We don't think about it until we're starting to have some trouble. So Parkinson's disease often affects or involves those symptoms of impaired motor function, as you know, so a little bit more slowed movement, more difficulty maybe with fine motor skills. And then there are the non-motor disorders or difficulties with mental disorders, and movement disorders also contribute to motor and speech as well. So the goal is to choose games that are going to help you in some of these domains. So visual spatial skills, I kind of explained already what that is. And it includes not only the images that you see, but the perceptions of what you see and making sense of that. And again, that depth perception. So some of the things you can do, I brought a couple of things here to show you. So one is jigsaw puzzles. And I'm not suggesting you go out today and buy a 1,000-piece puzzle if you're not somebody that does puzzles. I will tell you, I never liked puzzles. My mother just loved them, and she would do puzzles all the time. And I was avoiding them. But lately, I've been finding they have some great puzzles that are just collages of many things. Have any of you seen those out there? They're kind of fun. And I think those are a little bit easier because you can see sort of where each piece goes. You're not looking at 1,000 blue pieces and trying to put them together. You have a little bit more of a visual clue as to where those pieces go. So trying a puzzle with large pieces that you can manipulate well, and also maybe start with a 50 or 100-piece puzzle if you're not a big puzzle person, and work your way up if you enjoy it. There's Tetris is another game. Picture puzzles. There's a game called Qubits, and I brought that today, where they have, this is the Qubits, and then they also have a Qubits Junior. So Qubits Regular has little squares, and Qubits Junior, they're a lot larger. So that might be something that you might try first, is the junior version. But what they do is they give you cards of all different patterns, and you have to use these little blocks. And let me show you here. I don't know if you can see them. You use the blocks and you manipulate them in such a way by turning them and making that same design as you have on your card. So again, it really works with the kind of perceiving where those blocks go and that visual spatial skills. So that can be a fun game to play. Any kind of block puzzle or something called tanagrams where it's very similar to qubits, those puzzles are fun to try. For problem solving, you could try chess or checkers or anything that involves strategy, logic games, cryptograms, some of those games. And those can be pretty challenging. Again, start out with simple and work your way up. Executive functioning, or that higher level decision making and processing, can be helpful to address as well, and because that is one of the domains that is strongly affected with Parkinson's and Lewy body. One of the things you can try for the executive functioning is something called Rory's Story Cubes. Has anyone ever tried these before, or have you seen them before? Okay, I've seen a couple people. Yep. And so what those are is you roll the dice and you see the little pictures on there, and you've got to create a story using just on the fly of what pictures you see and put those together. So creating a little bit of a story. There's Jenga, there's Rush Hour, where you've got to figure out how to move cars. There's categories, so a lot of different games that you can try that address executive functioning. Then there's our memory. And memory is something we all can relate to, whether it's playing with your grandchildren, playing a simple match game where you, like we did when we were kids, and you turn the cards over and have to remember where they were. I think there used to be a game show on TV called Concentration that was like that. There's reading and just discussing what you've read. Even if you're watching a TV show, talk about it with your spouse afterward or your family members. Simon is a game. I don't know if any of you have seen Simon before, but it will flash lights in a specific order, and you have to repeat the order, and it consecutively gets harder. There's also something called an alphabet game, like where one person will say, I'm going on a picnic and I'm bringing an apple. And then the next person says, I'm going on a picnic and I'm bringing an apple and a banana. Then the next person has to repeat that and add the next one for C, and so on. And by the end, it gets really challenging when you have to go through the whole alphabet. You have to remember what people are bringing to this picnic. Then there's language skills. So language skills difficulties may be slower speech, more difficulty coming up with words you want to say, understand complex ideas, or communicate. So in Parkinson's disease, it's also very important to project your voice. So some of the things that relate to word finding, it would be things like crossword puzzles. I did bring a game along here called Bananagrams. How many of you heard of Bananagrams? Seen this around? All it is Scrabble tiles. If you have the game Scrabble at home, you can use those tiles, and each tile has just a letter on them. And you could just pour a couple of those on a table and say, okay, let's see how many animals can we find and how we can make out of these tiles. Simple as that. You don't have to always play the exact game. And that's something I'm going to emphasize right now. You really don't have to play by the rules all the time. You can really throw out the timers, adapt the game to something that works for you, to your level and what you want it to be. Using some of the basic ideas is really all you need to do. It still is, the whole point is to have fun and enjoy it and not be too overly challenged by it. You want to be challenged just enough so you're learning something and you're enjoying it, but you don't want to be overly challenged where you just want to throw your hands up and say, I'm not doing this anymore, right? Unscrambling words can be something you could do, word finding. In some of the books, you want to look for large print, and if you have Parkinson's, sometimes using a built-up pen might be helpful too, because I understand, a lot of these things have fine motor skills are involved, and that can be really hard if you have Parkinson's. So although Bananagram tiles are pretty small, I know they do have larger Scrabble tiles, or you could use cards, such as this Linkity game. This Linkity game has cards that have letters on them. Again, don't have to play Linkity, just use the cards, to put your... the game of Linkity, actually, what that involves is you have a letter, and let's say it's F, and I'm like, okay, flamingo. And then the next person picks an S, and they've got to think of a word that has to do with flamingo that starts with an S. That's a tough one. I don't know. The C. I don't And then the next person has to pick another one and find something about the C that starts with a P. So just to give you an idea, that's what Linkity's about. That's kind of fun. For calculation or numbers, we have Yahtzee. That's pretty well known, right? Bingo is one. There's a money bingo out there you can find that has coins on pictures of coins on your cards, and then they say 25 cents, and you've got to find the quarter. There is Monopoly, cribbage is great, dominoes is good. I do have it's a countdown. I don't know if you've heard of Shutbox, but that's another game where you roll dice and you have to flip over the number. You add the two numbers together and flip over the combination and try to flip over all of your tiles or all of your little wood pieces. So there's that. This one is not calculation, but I forgot to mention it. It is called a nomia, and you have to find different things that, like you pick a card and it says clothing, pieces of clothing. How many pieces of clothing can you name? How many cookie brands can you name? So you pick a card and they're all categories, and you need to find categories. So all of those games work. They sound simple in some ways, but they are really using a lot of different domains of your cognition or your brain health. So card games are great. Anything from bridge, harder, like bridge or sheep's head. If that's hard, how about war? Crazy Eight, Uno. I have one family that plays a lot of King's Corners. They just love it. So there's also online. So if you're a person that likes to go online, there are several options here too. There are a few that have been researched and designed by neuroscience scientists that can help. One is Brain HQ, and that one has been around for a little while. It is designed by neuroscientists, and it looks at brain speed, intelligence, motivation. Let's see. And what it does is it progressively gets a little challenging as you go. And I believe it starts off free, but if you want to continue or go into more advanced mode, I believe after time there is a cost to that one. Lumosity is the same. They did a study with Lumosity. It's a little bit more well-researched than the other one, Brain HQ. But they did a research study that showed after 10 weeks, the Lumosity group actually improved in performance across a battery of cognitive tests. So that was pretty impressive, right? Their working memory was better, their reasoning, processing speed, all those things were better when they used Lumosity. So again, I believe that starts off free over time, might have a cost to it. If you're looking for a completely free option, the ARP. ARP has great games online. There's also one that I found that's called Park and Spark, I believe it is. Yeah, Park in Spark. That's an app for Parkinson's cognition. So that might be something to look into. If you're one that likes books instead of all the games or the online options, there are mental fitness cards. If you go to the library, and I know Barnes & Noble's right across the street, and I checked it out yesterday, and they had several books that were by a company called Brain Games. And brain game books, they have all different types that have different options. There's also this Strengthen Your Mind books, which are available through the Attainment Company or online. You can find those too. There's the brain games. And then Nancy Lind, I used to do a class called Memory Connections, which was a class for people who just to promote brain health. It's like going to the gym for your brain. And one of the books I really used a lot was the ones by Nancy Lind, the 399 Games, Puzzles, and Trivia. What I found was that there were several things in there that were challenging, and then there were some that were pretty easy. So depending on the person's level, it was something for everyone in that book. And I really enjoyed sharing that with the people in the group. There could be picture puzzles, where you have to compare two pictures and see what you can find that's different. There's a brain workouts for seniors. And again, notice that a lot of them are in large print. Again, I can't emphasize enough that you can adjust games for however challenging you want them to be. You don't have to play by the rules. Just start with something that really sounds appealing to you and that you think you're going to enjoy, and get rid of the timers and have fun with it. I usually eliminate the competitiveness nature, unless you're a real competitive person and you like that. That's okay too. And again, the goal is really just to have fun and socialize and strengthen that brain. Okay, so just like we're doing the rock steady boxing, we're going to do that to our brain. So I'm going to change gears just a little bit and talk about care partners. So when someone who has Parkinson's disease starts having difficulties with their memory, that can take a real toll on the care partner as well. And I just wanted to address this. This question comes up a lot, and I felt, even though it didn't really go with the brain games, I thought it was important to talk about a little bit. And I think as a care partner, It's hard when you are with someone for a long time, many years in most cases, and you have expectations of each other, of what you want to do, right? You know that, like, for example, I know my husband always does the yard, and I do the cooking, and we have our little roles in the family. So when one person has any illness, for that matter, right, things change. And so there's that whole transition and adaptation that has to take place. And sometimes that really upsets the apple cart, right? We find that we might be communicating differently with our loved ones. So one thing is to take care of yourself. As a care partner, it's so important really to, again, be that person that takes care of yourself so you can help your loved one. Because if you go down, you both are going to go down in some cases, right? We don't want that to happen. And I believe there's another breakout session that is talking right now about putting the oxygen mask on someone before you put yours on. We're always told that in the airplane. It's the same kind of thing when you are loving someone who has a disorder like Parkinson's or any memory disorder. Being an advocate is also important. Standing up for them and creating opportunities for activity and for fun. It doesn't all have to be negative, right, and heavy. So you want to look for those opportunities to really enjoy life a little bit. Focusing on what a person can do and not what they can't. So same with the games. Don't make the games turn into being a competitive thing, or just enjoy, right? And look at what the person is able to do and work with that. Also treat your loved one as if it were your best friend, because oftentimes it is, right? It is our best friend, our spouse or our parent or a loved one. So sometimes, when people with Parkinson's or dementias have difficulty with behaviors or hallucinations or things like that, which can be part of the disease, behaviors can communicate an unmet need. So if you see someone in the early stages of a disease, a person might be able to say what's bothering them, but if you see them struggling with that or not being able to find the words, kind of your job is going to be that detective to really figure out what's going on, or how can I address that behavior, right? What can I do to help? So sometimes your loved one might say one word but mean another, or words might come out garbled or different, right? And so try to figure out what the underlying meaning is. And choose your battles wisely. I can't emphasize this enough either, right? I call them so what behaviors, right? Sometimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day that little things we make mountains out of molehills. So, trying to figure out what's really important here in the situation before you respond. Sometimes it's easy to jump on somebody or correct them or say, nope, no, we're going to do this, and argue about something really minor when really it's not that big a deal. So it's not a big deal if someone walks out of the house with one blue sock and one black sock. Now, if you're a person who's type A, that might really bother you, but that's one of those situations where you don't battle that. That's a minor thing. So that's a so what situation. Another thing you can ask yourself is, can this conversation wait for a different time if it's not the right time and you can tell the person's having a hard day? How about presenting it in a manner that might get a better cooperation? Looking at maybe I'm not the best person to talk to about this. I know when I have disagreements sometimes with my husband, I will go to my daughter because she's he will do anything for her. So I have a feeling someday it's going to be my daughter that's going to have to talk to my husband about big decision things that he might not listen to me about. Just little things like that. Think about who's the right person, how can we best present this to make a difference. Simplifying things. So if I told you, go in the kitchen, please, and get me ice cream. I want a little bit of fudge on it. There's some nuts in the cupboard. Can you put nuts on there too? And then put it back in the fridge. Oh, and I want my red bowl. You can remember all of that? Probably, chances are not so much, especially if your brain isn't cooperating. So you want to look at one thing at a time. Make it very simple and realize the person might be less able to multitask than they used to. I think we all lose a little of that as we age. I'm starting to notice it too. But I think it's especially challenging for people who are struggling and living with Parkinson's or any kind of memory disorder. Using familiar stories, rewording things to make it sound more pleasing. A good example of this is I had a patient who was a coach, and he had eventually developed some signs of dementia, and he decided he was not interested in taking showers anymore. And his wife was just struggling. She just could not get him to get in the shower. And he didn't like the stimulation of the water, which can be a common problem, but he just wouldn't go in. So we tried to problem solve, and finally we said, "Hey, coach, great game, let's hit the showers." And he went. He went into the shower. Try to think of a way you can make it a little bit more pleasing or more up their alley. He kind of said, "Hey, great. That I understand." So that was something that we used. So just looking at how you're wording things and how you are approaching the problem. Sometimes you might have to take the blame, even if it's not you. And a good example of this is if someone is having a hallucination or misperception, and they might think someone took something that they shouldn't have taken, and because they can't find it, and they think your loved one took it. You might answer by saying, maybe I did. Maybe I accidentally misplaced it. I didn't mean to. Let's look for that together. And we'll find it. I know we'll find it. And reassure them. So that would be different, right, than if I said, "I didn't take it," right? So think about how you're going to approach these situations. And sometimes you might have to use I statements and take a little ownership, even if you didn't, to try to figure that out. Or just say, "Hey, let's work on that together," instead of making it a battle between two people. So tips on what to avoid. Avoid asking questions that rely on memory, right? Sometimes we have a tendency to do that, and we say, "Oh, don't you remember? Yeah, we went on this vacation, and this happened, and this happened." Instead of asking them that, you might show them a picture and say, I wonder what we were doing in that picture. Or I wonder who that is. Who does that look like? And see what they answer, And it might trigger a memory for them, and they might have a whole story around it, which is wonderful. Having those reminiscent moments where you're talking to your loved one and really getting to know some of those things, because the long-term memories generally are much stronger than our short-term memories. Another thing is to avoid that quizzing game. And a lot of times we do this out of our need to just want to be helpful. And it's completely unintentional. But we look at things and we say, tell me now what this is, and who's the president, and what's the date. We're kind of quizzing people. And we want to do that to help them, but really in some ways it's really counterproductive. Because it's, I guess if someone were saying that to me, I'd feel very put on the spot by that, or feel embarrassed if I couldn't remember, or get more anxious, and then I'm really going to forget what I was going to do. So instead of doing the quizzing, again, bring it up in such a way that you're kind of asking, I wonder about this, and see what they say, and see where they're at. And don't correct them if they're misremembering something. Again, that would be a so what kind of thing, right? So if they're misremembering an event, how does it help them if you say, "Oh, nope, that was wrong. We didn't do that. That was a different vacation. We did this on this vacation." Does it really matter? I know it matters to you maybe, but it may not really be worth that contention or that anxiety or that person feeling sad or upset that they forgot something, right? So that would be important to try not to correct a person. Another thing that I tell people about is watching the news, especially with people who might have some hallucinations as part of their Parkinson's or Lewy body or dementia. Having them watch the news or shows that have a lot of violence or war-related themes might be very disturbing, especially if that person has past trauma or served in the war. I can tell you an example. I was part of a memory clinic in Oshkosh, and we were given a new office space, and we were designing the waiting room. And the staff all wanted, TV in the waiting room. And I said, no, I don't want that. And I'll tell you why. 9/11 had just happened. Can you imagine why I didn't want the TV in the waiting room? Because we had a lot of veterans at that time coming in. And I knew that could very well affect them or bring out that trauma. And some of them might have just gone right back there in their mind, and we didn't want to do that. So kind of watch what they're watching on TV, because that can kind of affect hallucinations, especially if that's an issue that you're dealing with. So when life gets tough, and this can be for any disease really, stop and take a deep breath. We learned how to do that today, right? Take a deep breath and exercise a little bit. Make sure you're meeting your own needs, again, and wear your life jacket, right? So you can help them. You might need to remove yourself from a situation if there's an unsafe situation. Hiring a caregiver, and I always tell people early on it's not a bad idea to look at your support circle, and if you need to have an extra person in your support circle, that's a great idea. Even if you hire someone to come from the home care or have a friend come once a week and just visit for a little bit. Having that extra person can be really good if something, God forbid, happens to you and you need to have a knee surgery or something for a while. It's not like you're starting from scratch and hiring a complete stranger who doesn't know your loved one and comes in. So even if you just introduce somebody early on to add to that support circle who knows your loved one, that's a good idea. Again, ask yourself, how would I treat my best friend? And if this were me, how would I want people to talk to me or to be with me? What's important to me? So think about those things too, and that might help you kind of navigate the situation you're in with your loved one. Always remember it's the disease driving that person's behavior, their challenges physically, or any of the symptoms that you're seeing, right? It's not the person's intention to make you upset or push your buttons. It's usually your brain not cooperating with you for the person that has Parkinson's, Lewy body, or dementia. And again, let it go if it's not important. So in summary, if you can master these 4 things, that would be great. And they're not easy to master. I don't say this lightly because I know I can't flip a switch and we can all change because we all have our human nature and we're all human beings and I have tendencies to respond in different ways. But these things will help you if you notice any memory or cognitive changes in your loved one. One is avoid arguing. One is reasoning. Try not to reason. Sometimes the person's ability to reason is in that front part of the brain, and that can be affected too with Parkinson's or dementias. So we don't want to expect that person's able to reason things the same way as they always did. So arguing with them might just not be productive. Sometimes you have to figure out what their abilities are and then include them accordingly. Testing, avoid testing and avoid overcorrecting people, right? If someone's correcting me all the time, I'd feel pretty defeated, right? And so you want to build people up. And I think we talked a lot about that today, all the great things we can do that are positive, all the wonderful games you can play that can help with some of that socializing and laughing. It's the best medicine. So with that, I will go to questions.
You mentioned driving. How do you decide when it's time to give up?
Okay, so the question is, how do you decide when it's time to give up driving? And that's a huge question, a very good question. So right now, the memory clinic I am in looks at several things. They look at the person's ability, they take the family history. Does the family feel comfortable riding in the car with you? Have you gotten lost or had any fender benders or had trouble maybe pulling your car into the garage and scratching the side? That's one of those visual spatial signs we could see. We do some cognitive tests, and some of the tests that look at those cognitive domains I talked about, the visual spatial skills especially, If you struggle on that test with those, kind of raises a red flag. So we may send you off in our clinic to a safe driving evaluation that is done by a therapist. It's an occupational therapist. And I work in the Valley in Neenah, and there is a person that does them there, a couple people, therapists, at the Theta Care System. And I know there's one in Green Bay at Prevea, and I'm sure in Milwaukee you have similar programs. But they will just kind of run the person through a couple cognitive tests, and also they will look at that person's ability to respond and react, like their reaction time, their processing time. Do they know what the signs are, things like that. And they will offer a suggestion. So they'll say, I really don't feel this person's safe to drive, and then that goes back to the doctor to have that conversation. And then the doctor may then let the DMV know. Some people decide on their own when they just don't feel comfortable anymore, because it can be liability. So some people will say, I don't feel comfortable, and that's fine, that's great if that's where you're at. But some people feel like, I'd rather have a test to make sure I'm safe, and then that's on my record. So that's something we do encourage. And again, because it's a progressive disease over many years, we may have to repeat that over time. Sometimes people will just get restrictions, like no nighttime driving, no highways, things like that. Or if they're only driving a few blocks to a store, that might be fine. So, sometimes they'll go to that driving eval and they'll come back with some restrictions, and sometimes it'll be a no. Sometimes it's okay to continue on. Does that help? It's a long answer to your question. Okay.
Any other questions?
So you mentioned an app. Can you repeat the name of that app that you were talking about? And was that through ARP? Or was
Yes, it was called, and I just found this after I sent this in, so you wouldn't have it. It's called Park in Spark. Park in Spark, S-P-A-R-K.
Can I just find that in the App Store, or is it?
I believe so. I Googled to find out what are some computer games that are good for Parkinson's specifically, and that one came up as a big one.
Hi, I'm just wondering if you have any supplements, like supplements for brain health that you would recommend to people?
No, I personally don't. The doctors would maybe be better to ask that one too. I do know that the doctors really are cautious about some of the supplements out there, because some of them are not really tested or researched or FDA approved. So we really don't know what's in them. So we're a little bit cautious about that. But like vitamins and things like that would be a good question for the doctors, which vitamins tend to be better. I do know for cognition, we always do look at vitamin B12 and D, and make sure that those are good, because those do affect memory more. Anything else, Daisy, to add to that?
I agree with that. It's really personal, so it's really important if there are vitamin panels that need to be run. Even when you think of vitamin D, you think, oh, it's just a vitamin, I can take it. But you can, it does store up in your fat cells, and so it can become toxic. So you really want to know where you're at and how much you really need, if you need it at all. So I agree.
Right. So a lot of times as part of our memory clinic, for example, we do lab work right away to see what people's levels are, and then we advise them accordingly. Yeah.
It talks about luminosity.
Yes.
And I don't think I know what luminosity is. Is it a brand or a company?
It is it's an application on your computer. So it's like a computer game program. So it's an application. You go to Lumosity, and it will, it just has different games that you can play on your tablet or on your phone. Mm-hmm.
Just go along with them. Just go along with the relative and drive. I used to be an optometrist, and I'd have patients come in, they'd want the vision screening thing. And I'd do that for them, but I'd say, take a look, go along and ride with your mother and father or relative. You always want to, there's a tendency for kids to want to do the driving because they're faster. We discovered my father was stopping 60 feet before an intersection because I rode along with him. You take the keys, or mom and dad, you drive.
What I think you might have said was that you have people that will drive with you at times just to see how you're doing. Is that right? Okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea occasionally. They did do a research, though, saying that co-piloting isn't necessarily a good idea because you can have somebody on one side yelling at the person to do something and it just adds to the chaos. But occasionally going with a person and seeing how they drive, engaging that is a good idea. Okay, yeah.
I'm one of those guys that doesn't really like games.
Okay.
Is there anything that you could do like when you're walking a dog or doing outside where you can practice on your memory?
Sure. You can count backwards by a certain number, 7, 6, 8. Just try that. Or just say the months backwards, or, just anything that you can do kind of while you're walking. I don't know if there's an app specifically, but there might be something. I haven't checked into that, but that's a good question. Anything you can do to just pay attention to your environment. Like she was talking about earlier, is attention, really focusing on listening to the birds or on different things can also help those parts of your brain, I would think.
Yeah, along the lines of the company that I'm thinking of is called GoGo Grandparent, and it's like a taxi service, and you just call them. One call, you don't have to go through a whole bunch of stuff to get a ride. For example, I was borderline safe to drive 6 months ago, and I decided I'd quit driving, and it's been fine since, because they'll get you there real quick.
Good. So you saying, and if I heard this correctly, you were saying that you're using a service that you found to work pretty well. You just make one call and you can go to where you want to go. Yep. And I think before you make that decision about stopping driving, that's another discussion to have is how are you going to get where you want to go? What's really important to that person? If they really love being in a choir at church, how are we going to get them there? Kind of make some of those plans ahead of time so we have a plan. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
And he said it was Go Grandparent, correct? Go Grandparent, for those that wanted to hear it again.
Oh, I love that. Okay, Go Grandparent.
I live with REM sleep disorder and have for a number of years. While there's a fun side to some of the stories I can tell of what they've done, there's also a sad emotional side. My wife and I don't share the same bed anymore. I know there's people with snoring and other reasons they don't do that. It has nothing to do with the physical intimacy, but the emotional intimacy that I can't sleep with my wife anymore. I think that should be talked about.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought that up. That's something that is a good point. He mentioned, I don't know if anyone heard what he said, but he said that one thing that people should recognize is if you have a sleep disorder, it's not just the disorder that you're living with, it's also the emotional impact of not being able to sleep with your spouse anymore, having that companionship and having that emotional change as well as physical. That's a very good point. Yeah. It's another loss, unfortunately, right, that you deal with. Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you so much, all of you,
Well, thank
for
you.
your great questions, and Julie, thank you so much.